Alright, glazing is what we do to give the clay that shiny, smooth surface that's impervious to water. First, you'll take your piece out of the kiln and go and wash it over at the sink. So the last thing that you probably did to your piece was to sand it to make it smooth. So the first thing that we need to do when we get it out of the kiln is to wash it off because it's all dusty. We just wash it off right there in the sink, and what's happening is it looks like it's getting instantly dry, but really what it's doing is absorbing all the moisture into all the little pores and stuff. And when it's doing that, it's also displacing the air. That's really important because when you glaze, the glaze will have a hard time getting into the pores. When it's reheated, the air could escape past the glaze out of the little pores and cause little tiny pinpricks in your glaze. So once you've washed it off once, probably go ahead and give it a second rinse. And now you're ready for glazing. After your piece has been thoroughly washed and wetted, then we're going to go ahead and take the glaze. Generally speaking, I use the glaze when it's just a gloss glaze like this, right out of the jar. The first coat we want to get very moist, because remember what I was saying about the pores holding the air, and we want to displace all that air. So I've wetted my paintbrush, and I'm wetting the clay down as I work with it, and with the paintbrush wet, I'm putting a very, very thin coat of that glaze. Very, very thin. And that's just helping to fill in all the pores and give it a good surface. Just a thin coat everywhere, everywhere. You'll find that this dries really fast as it's absorbing the moisture out of there. After you've given it a thorough coating with very, very thin, and it's dried up, and you can go ahead and give it a second coat. This time, don't thin the paint down, but still apply it nice and smooth and evenly. Even coat everywhere, everywhere. Avoid drips, avoid globs, thick spots and thin spots. Nice and even. You don't have to hold your piece like I'm doing. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But I would appreciate it if you'd have a towel down on the table. That way it keeps the glaze from getting on the table itself. Although the glaze is washable, so when you're cleaning up, just wash down the table like you would anyways, especially if you get a little bit of glaze on it. Once that first coat's dried, or I should say the second coat, the first thick coat has dried, you can give it a third coat. You want to give it 3 coats in all, 1 very thin and 2 much thicker, thick but smooth and even. Take care not to glaze the very bottom of it, because this is what attaches, well, this is what sticks to the kiln as it's sitting on the kiln itself. And so this bottom will fuse to the kiln, and the only way that we'll be able to get it off is with a hammer. So please don't glaze the very bottom. If you do get a little glaze on there, that's okay. You can take a rag like this and just wipe it off. And that's how it's going to come out. Nice and shiny, shiny.